throughout COVID, people had to manage quite quickly, moving remotely and things like that. And then now the big sort of grey area, or however you want to call it, is around security. And, you know, how can we now, moving forward, make sure everything is secure? So, Scott, how can we be confident that our Microsoft 365 data is secure?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think we've seen this big leap to working from home, as you called it out there, not by choice, but I think one of the great things that we have learned is that IT transformation projects don't have to take 1, 2, or 3 years, right? We can, when we've got the buy-in of the business and the buy-in of the teams, we can get things done really quickly, you know, when it's backed. And I think a lot of businesses have taken that step, and you know, in the same way that Neil was talking about there, in some of the shadow IT where they've just whipped out the credit card and put Zoom on, similar steps have happened around the Microsoft stack as well. So they've gone, oh, we've got Teams, okay, quick, get everyone on Teams. Oh, we've got SharePoint, stick all the documents in SharePoint and go, go, go. Great, everyone can work from home. And I'll be honest, a lot of the projects that we picked up at the start of COVID were exactly to help businesses do that. But of course, what we wanted to do was kind of just sort of put some of those checks and balances in, say, hey, what about security? What about remote access? You know, what about all these things? Because it takes a whole, you know, sort of suite of things to make sure that this is done properly. And I'll be honest, you know, I used to be an engineer who would laugh at the idea that Windows was secure in any way, right? You would get Windows and you would just go, oh, look, it comes with a firewall. Put a proper one on. And then you would do the same with antivirus, and then you would do the same with VPNs and encryption software and all these great things. And it's nice to actually be in a position now where we can say, you know what, out of the box, Windows 10 does actually do a good job of all those base elements. So you can have proper encryption, you can have proper antivirus, you can have proper VPNs now, as Chris was talking about. And we can actually start to trust the technology. We can start to see Microsoft as a security vendor. In fact, if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrants for kind of endpoint protection and desktop device security, they're kind of in 5 Magic Quadrants that they're leading the charge on. So they are really now a good vendor. Now, I know there'll be lots of infrastructure managers out there and IT managers out there that still are kind of in this mindset where they don't trust it because they haven't trusted it for a long time and they've been let down, you know, over the years. But I think, you know, if you're not looking at it today, you're seriously missing out on some great capabilities, because what we get now in the Microsoft security and compliance tools is this kind of integrated system. Right? Because right now we are using different tools, most likely for our email protection, our URL protection, our antivirus, our anti-malware. We're using lots and lots of different third-party tools that we've kind of plugged in to the desktop operating system. And the risk with that is, yes, you know, we might be getting best of breed perhaps from each of these vendors, but the risk is that none of those things talk to each other. Okay, so if there is an issue or an incident in one part of that tooling, it doesn't tell any of the others. So if we do get a breach in one part, we don't know, you know, because they don't talk to each other. You can, of course, go and put out something like a SIEM system, which will help pull in all those logs. But oh my God, it's just a nightmare to actually put those tools in place. You then need, it's not just a question of buying a software tool and saying, hey, go and monitor all these things. It's just not that simple. Then you need someone who's got to sit there and respond to all the alerts and decide, hey, is this a big security problem or a little security problem? The reason we quite passionately advocate for, you know, sort of scaling back now and using, you know, less vendors if possible, and ideally, you know, making the most of your Microsoft 365 subscription, is because all of these tools kind of plug back in to the same security and compliance checkpoint. Okay, so we have a single point. We know now that because people are working from home, identity, so my username and my password, has kind of become the core thing that we're judging security on, because it's really not about, you know, which device are you using, are you sat in a particular office, are you behind a particular VPN, because those days have pretty much gone over the course of the summer, because everyone's working from anywhere, and a lot of businesses are saying, hey, we might not go back to the office. So how do we carry on working from everywhere? And that's where we've got to come down to identity being this core foundation. And so it's really important to get the identity and the access control right. So obviously, we've got tools like Active Directory. Cool. Okay, we've had that for a long time. You might have that on premise. You might be using cloud only in Microsoft 365. But there are all the other things that we need to do around that. So multi-factor authentication. Okay, we've all got smartphones. There are multi-factor authentication apps. There's no reason now why everyone in the organization shouldn't be using multi-factor authentication. What we know is that 61% of large businesses were attacked by some kind of cyber attack or malware attack in the last 12 months. Okay, the government statistics tell us that. Of those 61% of businesses that were attacked, 80% of those came through some kind of email attack, some kind of phishing attack that then compromised the credentials, that then let the attackers get into the network. Okay, so the biggest risks for us are those inbound emails, people clicking on them, and then their accounts being compromised. That's it. Okay, if we could break those down and if we could stop those from happening, we would prevent the majority of cyber attacks and compromises that happen to UK businesses. So if you're thinking about your business, you think, okay, how do I dramatically improve usernames and passwords for people? The answer is multi-factor authentication. Okay, straight away. The great thing that we can tie to that is that if we detect a change, we can trigger that multi-factor authentication request to happen more often. By default, it's probably only going to happen like once every 30 days. You'll log in, you put your username and password, and then it will ping a multi-factor authentication request to your mobile device or even to your Apple Watch. Look at me, I've got an Apple Watch. But it'll ping a request to there and you just hit approve. That'll happen every 30 days. But if you go to another office location, if you log in from a Starbucks unsecured Wi-Fi, it's going to trigger that authentication again. If you go to another country, it's going to trigger that again, because the system's intelligent enough to see, hey, you normally log in from Leeds on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. I can actually see that 5 minutes later, you've logged in from Russia, I don't know, Moscow, pick a city, but you logged in from there 5 minutes later. Now, I'm going to say that you couldn't possibly have traveled from here to Moscow in 5 minutes, so I think that's suspicious. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you to just approve that sign-in request on your mobile phone. And of course, whoever our hacker is, I won't pick a random Russian name, but whoever our hacker is in Russia doesn't have the multi-factor authentication, can't sign in. That attack has been thwarted on this occasion. So that is the number one way that you can improve username password security. Whether you've got local Active Directory, hybrid Active Directory, cloud-only Active Directory currently deployed, there is a way for you to get multi-factor authentication today that is built into the licenses that you're already paying for with Microsoft 365. You don't have to go and buy, I don't know, Cisco Duo and add on more pounds per user per month and more complexity. It's already there and it's already built in. And as I say, it reports back into this single security and compliance engine. The other nice thing that we can then do is the number one help desk request we can then fix, which is password resets. Because people forgetting their password or people getting locked out of their account or actually getting an alert to say, hey, we think your account's been compromised, can you quickly reset your password? 9 times out of 10 results in someone having to phone the help desk to get their password reset. Well, again, with our multi-factor authentication app on the smartphone, that's just a couple of clicks. Users can reset their own passwords and it's absolutely foolproof. Okay, so again, we're back to how do we thwart those basic username and password problems? Dead easy. 2 tools already included in the license cost that you're paying. As I move on from that, I think the other thing that we need to do is the user training, because it's all very good to talk about technology and systems and processes. But the big thing, I haven't moved enough to make the lights go on. There we go, they're back. The big issue is user training. Because although we know that the technology can be robust and we can put in as many controls as possible, getting someone to not click that link or not fall for that text, you know, what do they call it? SMS-shing. There has to be a shing in everything, but it's not phishing or vishing, it's SMS-shing. But getting someone to not fall for those things is very, very difficult because we have right now 5 generations of people in the workforce. Okay, so we know that we've got some really, really tech savvy people, as well as some people who are, you know, quite scared of the technology and quite concerned about which button should I press and should I click this. And so they're very, very likely to fall for phishing attacks, or, you know, especially if a text message comes through, it's more trusted. They're more likely to click on these things. And what we have to be doing consistently is educating those people and actually doing phishing simulation, texting simulation, and actually sending them these training modules so that they get to know these are the types of attacks that you might see. These are the types of emails that you might get. Don't believe in them. Because again, from our IT tech heart, what we're going to say is, oh, don't worry, we've put URL protection in place so they can't click on it, and we've put email filtering in place so they won't get the malware, they won't get the spam emails. But the one that makes it through is the one that they're likely going to click on. And if you haven't trained the users, they're going to maybe think as well, well, we have all this security in place, so this one must be real. And we have to have this mindset that we don't trust things. Okay, we have a mindset that is, we've already been breached. How do we make sure that we don't get breached again? Let's not rest on our laurels when it comes to security. So we have to consistently be training people. So there are great training tools, things like Know Before, if people have come across that as a product suite. Fantastic suite of tools, very, very targeted towards UK audiences. Because again, when we see security tools, oftentimes they're very American, and they're very targeted towards US audiences. Know Before and their training package, really, really good for UK audiences. And you can even tie into modules around GDPR or PCI compliance. I don't work or sell Know Before. I just happen to recommend it. It's a really good tool, for UK businesses. But I think we have to take the time to train people in the organization. Now, it doesn't take long. That's the great thing. This is like 5, 10, 15 minutes of people's day just to get up to speed. Okay, and recognize the kinds of threats that will come through. But if we can do that and we can attack the kind of basics, and this really is basics around identity management, we're going to make an awesome difference. Now I'll move on a little bit further from that, because there are a lot of other tools that you will get inside Microsoft 365, and that is around sort of the antivirus, the anti-malware with Windows Defender. Those things are quite straightforward, and again, very well recommended. I know a lot of people still use things like Sophos and things like that. All great tools. Again, I'm just trying to bring back the idea that this is stuff that you already have as part of that subscription oftentimes. So rather than paying for two things and rather than having two products to manage, if you think about when you're onboarding new users or retiring new users, or leaving users, just being able to do that thing once in one portal keeps life nice and simple and keeps the monthly costs down. There are some other great tools inside the Microsoft 365 suite. Again, things like data leakage prevention. There's Azure Info Protection, which is all about encrypting files and documents. That one's bloody complicated and honestly doesn't work 9 times out of 10. So my genuine steer would be look at data leakage prevention. Data leakage prevention, really, really easy. You tick a couple of boxes and you say, hey, can you look out for me for anything that looks like a credit card number, anything that looks like a driving license number or a passport number? And then I can apply policies to that. I can say, okay, we can see this. You can email it internally. You can save it to OneDrive or SharePoint. You can't save it anywhere else. You can't send credit card numbers via email or Teams. Okay, so you can't instant message those credit card numbers around. And the user will get a prompt that says, hey, this is a bad idea. You should probably find a better way to do this. So that, again, is just keeping our company data safe. It's keeping our information safe. It's keeping our users safe. Because once again, leaking that type of information can lead back to social engineering attacks that then help attack the users, that help get the usernames and passwords. And hey, guess what? Our hackers are back into the system again. So it kind of draws back down to those same things. We trust Office 365 with a huge amount of data now, even if we're not putting our files there, and even if we're not putting, sensitive information like patient records in there, all of our business emails pretty much run through there. And in there is a huge amount of sensitive information about us, about our clients, commercially sensitive information. For people to get access to that, and oftentimes it's overlooked, well, it's just email. No, for people to get access to that is a real big deal. And that's why I'm very clear on, we have to draw back to these data leakage policies, username and password policies, getting that threat protection up to date. And I would say that the thing to kind of wrap around all of that would then be some external monitoring. So actually just monitor that the system is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Because again, there are some great tools inside Microsoft 365 for auditing and alerting and reporting, most of which are switched off by default. So go in, switch those on, make sure that you're getting those, or your IT admins are getting those, because there is some really interesting information in there. But also, I do think it's worth monitoring that externally as well. So if you don't have a security operations team inside your business, that makes sense. If your IT partner doesn't have a security operations team, I could understand that as well. There are specialist teams who will look after Microsoft 365, track all of the logins, all of the usernames, all of the data sharing, the internal and external sharing of your documents. They'll track and monitor all of that for you. and actually keep that safe. So if they see incidents or they see alerts, they can report back to you very, very quickly, or they can be empowered to take action very, very quickly. So they protect first, and then they can check in, hey, was this something that you actually wanted to happen? So putting a wraparound service around that makes a big difference. Again, not selling anything like that. That's not me, but it's just one of those things that I think businesses kind of skip over this. And a lot of the clients that I've been working with recently have really taken a lightweight view of Microsoft 365. They have a username, they have a password, they have shared accounts, which is a big no-no. They've got very simple password policies because they don't like to have complex password policies. Okay, that's a no-no as well. And they're taking lots of risks at each stage. And it's up to us in this forum to actually keep educating them. Again, that user training is massively important, but those policies that we can put down, that multi-factor authentication, all of that's going to make a big difference. And the thing is, it's not difficult now. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. There are very few excuses, but a lot of the businesses we see are still there. They're still taking those shortcuts. They're still taking the easy path. And when so many businesses are getting hacked, I just think it's such a big risk. Okay, so we have to cover those basics. I have rambled on for a huge amount of time, and I don't want to keep eating up other people's time. But I just think there's so much that we have inside those licenses. You're already paying for it, most likely. Okay, I'm not talking about going and buying all the different Microsoft security add-ons, but most of these things are already built into the base packages. And what we see when we meet most of our clients is we have a 60-point security health check. And that is drawn from the UK government's National Cyber Security Centre. I always get that the wrong way around. They draw up their recommended best practice for Office 365. It's a public document, go and find it. But we have a 60-point health check. And we see that pretty much some people get like 10 out of 60. So there's out of the 60 controls that you should have enabled inside 365, they score about 10. And what we do is we take that job to go, okay, let's turn on the other 50. You don't have to pay for any more licenses for those, but there are 60 controls in there that are going to protect your data and protect your users inside Microsoft 365. I will shut up now, I promise.
No, amazing. I think it's all really, really interesting. And even going back to, saying it might be 10 minutes out of your day to have to do the user training and everything. I think it's going to save you a lot of money, a lot of time, moving forward if that's all you had to do. I don't know if any of you guys have got anything to add on in terms of security. On to Scott's question.
Well, just what we're seeing is that we always get asked, because we do a lot obviously within cloud, a company called Cloud Gateway. The network connectivity is cloud more secure than on-prem, and I say it can be. Because still quite a lot of people in the old world where they want to walk into a data center that's locked up, that go through a single door, and you want to be able to stroke and lick servers with flashing LEDs, and it makes them feel comfy and warm.
Yeah.
Whereas on the cloud side, I would say that it can be. There's so many tools out there now, and so many wrappers and services that are built that are natively built into AWS, Azure, Google, that there's no excuse now. But I would say from the cloud provider perspective is being very clear on that service demarcation and roles and responsibilities of the shared responsibility model, is that, look, you can put it in 365 and you can pay your £3 a month, whatever it is, for an email account in Outlook, but don't expect it to do the DLP. And they'll go, well, what's DLP? Well, you had it on your old on-prem, you've not transferred it. So we do see a lot of, they just assume because it's in the cloud, I don't have to worry about the security. No. They've given you all the tools to be able to do all of that. And it does require people to understand what they have got to make it secure, because it ain't going to look after itself, even though they've put it on a plate for you.
That's so true. And the other thing that they skip as well, Neil, is they assume that it's backed up when it absolutely isn't.
Yeah.
So yes, it's in the cloud. It's basically in someone else's computer. It's not backed up. Yes, Microsoft do back up the 365 platform, but not for you. So if someone accidentally or maliciously deletes your data, there's a recycle bin. But after 30 days, or if they deliberately delete it, it's gone. It's not coming back. You're not going to Microsoft saying, hey, can we just restore last night's backup? That doesn't happen. And so that's one other thing that we just see is, oh yeah, that's taken care of, isn't it? Mm-mm.
Oh, it's exactly the same on the non-EUCS side of it. On the server side, I think it was AWS had a partial outage. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Azure had a major outage. I think it was last month.
Yeah.
And a number of our clients, central government, big organisations, going, "Well, we're down now." It's like, well, we put it in one availability zone. We thought that it was. We'd have to. It's like, well, to be fair to the CTO of AWS, he said, design everything as if everything is going to fail. We're not going to do it all for you. We're going to give you the tools. If you can't read the manual and sort it out yourself, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And it's the same on backups as well. We see that. Again, I just eat popcorn and go, well, you didn't have.
That's the big difference between a lot of on-prem environments, especially when they're running VMware, because they're used to being able to just shift virtual machines from one set of hypervisors to another.
Yeah.
And in all public clouds, you just can't do that. You don't see what's going on underneath, so you have to build for availability.
But again, I would say is, they've bought enough machines on premise to do that, so they understand we've bought all this. But when it comes to the cloud, they don't think about taking the DR site. They just go, oh well, I've done it live here. There's always an option for DR, backup and disaster recovery to another data center, another location in the same country. Did you take that option? No. Okay, we'll understand why you're down then. In your on-premise world, you bought one cluster.
Yep.
And you put all your eggs in one basket. And when it went off, it didn't fail over because there was nothing there. Yeah, exactly.